Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Ah, you made it. Ready to have some fun? It's outrageous. Well, take a load off and join the conversation, and we can yak on Backlit Cinema, the podcast. I'm your host, Zoe. That's Z-O or Z to the O for those outside of the U.S. It's the 116th episode. 116. I don't know if I said that right. It didn't flow off the tongue like I wanted to, but it's the 116th episode. Thank you for downloading and streaming. We really appreciate it. We watch movies that I love when I was growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and I talk about my favorite parts, and I give you my son's impressions of the movie. Now, if you like what you're about to hear, then please tell your family, tell your friends, tell all of your neighbors, tell your nearest disgraced pro football player, and tell that bum of a private dick about our humble little show, Backlit Cinema, the podcast. Now, as you've known, I've been on the hunt for great guest hosts for this show. And it hasn't been easy. You got to dig, you got to get into it. You got to struggle. But I found a great guest host for you today. Coming to the stage, a new kid on the block, breaking into the podcast game by exposing the world to extraordinary people. Put your hands together for the host of this beautiful podcast, Casual Nonsense, Marc. I pressed the wrong button. But that's all right. What I meant to press was, so I don't even know which button it was supposed to be now. There we go. Hey.
Nice. Man,
Marc, how you doing?
I appreciate that intro, brother. That was awesome. Now I hope I can live up to the hype. You had to go digging deep for me, so hopefully I can come through for you and your show. But it's awesome to be here, man.
I've listened to your podcast. I listened to a couple of shows, and I was like, you know what, this guy's going some places, right?
I appreciate it.
I love the variety that you have on your show. I hadn't listened to it yet, but there's an episode where you talk about Marvel. There's an episode where you do an interview with a nurse, I believe. Yep. And then one episode that I just listened to was you were having a conversation with a martial artist, and when I clicked on it, I didn't know what it was. I just thought the title of the episode was intriguing, like tap, or
tap, snap, or nap. Yeah.
Tap, snap, or nap. I still don't know what the snap is, but that was a fascinating episode. It was a great interview that you had.
Well, that's a friend of ours, Jake, and he's a jiu-jitsu fighter, right? So I don't come up with the names of the shows until after I interview them. So as he's going through, and he says something in the interview about, if you're fighting against me in the ring, you got one way out. You're either gonna tap out, you're gonna take a nap, which means you put to sleep if you don't tap out, or something snapping. So if you're not tapping or napping and you got a broken arm, right? So that's where the expression comes from. So if you're not winning, you're either gonna tap, snap, or nap. And I just absolutely loved it. I'm putting that on a T-shirt right now. I'll show it to you later. And I'm trying to coordinate with him for him to brand that out. But anyway, that's where that comes from.
Absolutely. That definitely sounds like it needs to be on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
That was my first. I remember you mentioning it on the show, and that was my first thought. I was like, man, that's a T-shirt right there.
Yeah. I don't have it. I have it designed, but I don't have it printed yet. But I'll send it over to you after the show.
Oh, okay. I look forward to seeing that. So yours is mainly an interview show, and you have a wide variety of subjects, like I just said. Yeah, movies, martial arts. How do you choose your interviews? Like, what's the process?
I just look for interesting people. So basically, I mean, it's called Casual Nonsense, right? So it's just that. There's no limited direction of where we can steer this truck, right? So if someone wants to talk about their business, they want to plug a book, they want to talk about a bad day at the dentist, I don't care. If it's entertaining for people to listen to for a 20 to 40 minute period or whatever it ends up being, I'm perfectly okay with that. I just want to get on there, have a good time. I think that I thought initially I could get on and have conversations with myself, but then I realized, like, I'm not that interesting. So I figure if I find interesting people and hopefully make me a little more interesting, then maybe we have a formula that works. So it's a lot of fun. So anyone who's listening that maybe thinks they're be a good guest, I mean, hit me up and we'll have a conversation and we'll see what kind of chemistry we can get.
Yeah, I definitely have you plug the show, and I have your contact information in the show notes. Make sure that people can find you when they
Perfect.
want to slide onto the show, slide into your DMs, as it were.
Slide on in.
I
Yep.
don't know why that's the thing. Why that's it
I don't know
sounds
what it means,
so
but we'll
nasty.
go
I
with
know
it.
what it means, but then it was like let's do the horniest version of how I can contact you. How about I slide into your DMs? So I like the questions that you ask. If you like me, you write your questions down because my brain is like swish. It's
Yeah.
like so. Do you write your questions down, or
Oh,
or
oh
are
yeah,
you just
yeah.
having a conversation?
As soon as what I try to do is I try to write down. I have like a basic theme that I'll like once I know who's coming on, I do like a basic theme. I actually keep these folders at my like on my computer where if I think someone might come on, I start researching them a little bit to say what are they about, and I keep notes as I go. But yeah, I'll have a couple of kind of backup questions, if you will. So a lot of the times I'll ask a question, and if it like I said steers down some road, like we'll just follow it down that road is fine with me. And then if I like to have backups in case conversation stales out a little bit.
Yeah,
But it
yeah.
hasn't yet. I've been lucky. I've had people on and I got talkers. So
Yeah, yeah. That's it's awesome when you invite people onto an audio podcast and they like to talk. That's the key. To
yeah, that's
an
that's
audio
it.
podcast. You can't be coming on the show and then like run out of gas. Like
Yep, yep. But you got to be prepared for it, right? I mean, and you know that
right.
because you're equally as prepared for your shows. So you got to have that ammunition ready. You don't want the dead air. You got to keep people entertained and focused.
Right, right, right. Yeah, you have a good understanding of what it means to, engage with your audience. So, what made you get started? It was like, what were you a guest on somebody else's podcast? Did you know somebody with a pod or a show? Like, did you know somebody with a YouTube channel? Are you just watching YouTube's one day and was like, you know what? It's time for me to jump in there.
Well, I'm probably gonna make myself sound a little dorky here, but there's a couple of guys like when COVID was hitting around. There was me and probably about four or five other guys. We get on every like once a week, and we start playing D&D through Zoom. And so half the time we spend just kind of hacking on each other or talking about movies or shows that we watched, and just kind of BSing a bit, right? And then I think one of them was like, "Oh, we should do a podcast." And I took it seriously, and I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, like let me do that research." So we spent a few months, and the initial concept was actually to do movie reviews because I love movies. Clearly, so do you, right? So,
Yes.
uh, so I was like, "Oh, we could get on. I could do this." I'd listen to some movie review podcasts, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I could definitely see myself doing that." And just partway through the research, we decided to pivot because I just decided that there's too many interesting people in the world. I didn't want to limit myself, so I'm still okay doing movie reviews, but I want to bring on people that tell a good story, and I think that would be more a funner way to mix it up for me.
Right. Are you listening to movie review podcasts right now, or are you just what podcast interests you the most?
I get a variety of stuff, so I listen to some movie reviews, yourself included. Um, the one of the inspirations for me is a big one that's out there is the rewatchables. I've been a big fan of Bill Simmons for a long time. He used to. I'm from the Boston area, and so is he. So he used to write a lot of articles about the Red Sox and Patriots and Celtics and whatnot. So he had me hooked from 20 years ago, and so I followed his career through, and he just has an interesting take on a lot of films. But I listen to that. I listen to a lot of like entrepreneurial type podcasts. A lot of if you listen to Simon Sinek, like this guy is a great motivational speaker. But I'm always looking for new ones because there's an endless supply, and the space will never be over bloated. In my opinion, there's 3 million podcasts out there,
Yeah, yeah.
and you know, and that's the beautiful thing about podcasts, right? You can listen while you're at the gym, you can listen while you're driving to work, you can listen at work, depending upon your job. So you can fill your day with hours of information. I don't like to read, I like to listen. So audiobooks, podcasts, like just play them.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm the same way. Spending a lot of time. I listen to lots of podcasts. So, uh, one movie podcast that I like listening to is called Not a Bomb Podcast, and I like it because one of the things you realize is that movies is not uh is a subject. It's not really, or a topic. Is not really, you can't just talk about movies on the podcast. You have to have an angle, right? So
Yeah.
my angle is like I'm just gonna focus on the people I love when I was growing up and get my son's reaction. That was my angle. In the earlier shows, it was just me and him doing a podcast. And then when our schedules was as such that we couldn't like do the podcast together, then I started having on guests. So I'm basically talking to myself into a microphone.
Right.
But like I just focus on those movies. But there's another one called Not a Bomb Podcast, and what they do is they talk about movies that bombed at the box office, and they they try to discover if those should have bombed, or if they deserve to,
Interesting.
or if they should not have bombed at the box office, right? So the Last Boy Scout would fit perfectly within their purview, because when I
Yeah.
looked at the box office, I was like, oh my God, this didn't do well at all. I had no idea.
Right. Right.
So
Well, I have part of a theory on that, which we'll get into as we get down to it. But
right.
um, yep.
And another one that I like is The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema, which is, they're basically the movies that they look at are uh like the B, C, and D list movies, right? If you talk about like the Slock films, the ones that, just, and I dip into that type of movie, but these guys are like expert, right? They really they
Right. Yeah.
really know their movies. I mean, they know the history, they know the filmmakers, they're really deep into that style of filmmaking, that it's like the type of movies that Quentin Tarantino loved, and inspired the Quentin
Oh,
Tarantino
right.
movies, the what do you call it? The grindhouse movies, like those type of movies.
Yes. Yes. Yep. Well, everyone grabs their inspiration, right? So yeah, I think that was one of the things that inspired him to make movies, which we're all thankful for because
Right.
you gotta love a good Tarantino movie.
Absolutely.
But I think like you're right, like you said, as long as it's interesting and they have some sort of I don't want to say like a gimmick, that's the wrong term for it, but yeah, you got to have some sort of game plan going into it. You have some sort of layout or format that's going to keep people interesting, interested, I should say.
Right. So it's great to learn about this new podcast you have. I'm excited for the audience to find it. So why don't you give a shout out to your podcast? Let people know how they can find Casual Nonsense.
Sure. Thank you. So yeah, casual nonsense, casualnonsense.com would be probably the easiest way. We're listed on, every major podcast listing except for Pocket Cast, as Zoe has pointed out to me this morning. He couldn't find me on there, so I have homework when we're done here today. But basically, you can go on casualnonsense.com and you can get to any of the social medias that we're at, which is all the major ones, as well as you can listen to it directly on the website, or if you prefer, Spotify, Apple, or whatever your podcast of choice is. We're about, I think I'm about to release episode 11 or 12 on every Tuesday. A new one comes out. So still new, open to gentle feedback if you want to provide it, and but always trying to improve and be better. So I'm happy to be on an established show like yourself. I mean, 116 episodes. That's impressive, and I
Right.
hope someday I can return that favor. You know what I mean, and be at that same level and see what happens.
Right. I'd gladly be on your show. I don't know if I have anything interesting to talk about, but we'll find something, because you talk about everything. If you want to grind it out on phase 4 or phase 5 of Marvel, I'm down to clown, as they say.
All right. Well, I'll consider this your audition for the next Marvel show we do. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Also, let me, because you had mentioned it, and I totally skipped over it because you said that you play D&D. So I have to ask the question that everybody has asked you: what did you think of the new D&D movie that just came out?
You know what? I was there first day. I thought it was really good. I'm a big Chris Pine fan, so You could put him in probably most anything, and I'm gonna check it out. And the fact that he's in this D&D world. Um, Now I'm not a pure D&Dist. I haven't been playing it for 20 years, so I don't know all the ins and outs of everything. My son, on the other hand, would probably rip it apart a little bit, but but from what I hear, it was pretty good to the true to the form. I was thoroughly entertained, and I would watch it again. And I'm hoping they make it like a universe. I'm hoping they make it like some sequels to this and keep that magic going because you got this world where it's endless. So
Yeah,
as long as you get some of the main stars, because it had enough comedy in it to keep you entertained, but there was enough action. It was a great mix, in my opinion.
I agree wholeheartedly. I'm not like deep into D&D. I've never played it, but I do enjoy some of the lore. I definitely watched the animated series that came on in the 80s. I think it was the
Oh, with
80s.
the little they kind of gave homage to it. Did you
Yeah,
notice when they're
yeah,
in that
yeah.
maze? Yeah.
I saw that. That was awesome. I actually
Yep.
had to watch it again at home because I remember them saying only after the movie was over did they say they paid homage to the characters because I didn't notice them when I watched them. Then when I watched, they had like some clips on YouTube where you could
Right. Right.
see
Yep.
where they are highlighted. I was like, oh yeah, that is them.
Yep. Yep. I remember that cartoon too, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you can get it anywhere at this point, but maybe since that's out, maybe whoever owns the rights to that should look into streaming that somewhere.
Yeah, I hopefully they're thinking about it. I actually saw somebody release like brand new action figures for those cartoons. They never
Really?
these cartoons never had action figures, and I was just wandering around the mall, and I went to I think it was Sears or whoever owns Toys R Us now because there's a department store that has like a Toys R Us section, and I went to their Toys R Us
Huh.
section, and they had the D&D action figures, and
Wow.
I took a couple of pictures and I put it on Instagram, and I was like, man, I swear, if I could buy every toy that I
Right.
that I ever wanted, right? Like if I just had like unlimited funds and I would just buy toys all the time, and then I would be living in a warehouse. I wouldn't even live in a house.
Right. Man,
it's
could you
it's
imagine though?
Oh my god. It was like because they had the ones that I saw was the archer, the acrobat, and I think the
Yep.
barbarian, the little kid.
The
And
little
I was
kid's a
like,
barbarian. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, oh my god, I can't believe they have these toys here. And it's not that I can't afford them. Just don't have the space for all of the crap that I
Well,
have.
for me, I got to answer to a higher power, which I call the wife.
Right,
So there's a
right, right,
yeah,
right.
you got to
Absolutely.
budget some of that stuff out, right?
Right, and they're right to limit our aspirations, I believe.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad that you're able to. You had a chance to plug your website, and thanks for letting me know what you thought of D&D. I believe that you said your son would probably tear it apart, but there was a friend of mine, and he's a huge into D&D. He like knows all the lore. It's like he's one of those
Okay.
people like you go to the movie and it's like he's whispering to your ear the D&D lore as you're watching the movie. He's that guy. So
Is that
he
okay?
he thoroughly enjoyed the movie because he loved all of the callbacks to the D&D lore that was in the movie. So I think your son will probably like it.
Good.
The
Good.
I don't know if they're going to make any sequels though. It's not making its budget back. So that's pretty sad because it's a really good movie,
Yeah.
but it's like it's
It's
just one of those
unfortunate, right?
movies. Yeah, it's just one of those movies where they just not hitting they're not going to make their money back. So it's I don't know if they're going to
Well, you know what there
continue
is?
forward
There's a
with
lot of
that.
celebrities. There's a lot of celebrities that play D&D. Um, and I'm gonna get his name wrong, but what movie is he in? There's a guy. I think his name was. I should probably look it up before I bring up the subject. Anyway, there's celebrities that play D&D, and they have YouTube channels that play. Um, and they were talking a couple of years ago. I think it was probably 10 years ago. They were trying to put something into production for a movie. I think nowadays you could probably do a series. So
Yeah.
if you can get some actors that love it and that tie to it, that are good, like they're gonna stay true to the source material. Kind of like Henry Cavill and The Witcher, right? Like he loves the source material so much that he just gives this character so much life. It's unfortunate that this is his final season as it, but when you find these other actors or people that have influence over Hollywood in some way, like let them control the show. This is a Dave Filoni, John Favreau on Star Wars. Like just give them the show and get out of their way and let them figure it out because they're going to do right by the fans. And and that's going to turn into money for the studio, right? So
Right.
stop trying to interfere and make it, let them do their thing.
Right. So let's switch over from one movie to the next, the movie
Yep.
that we are all gathered here today to talk about. So let's get into the section I like to call the opening credits, and we're going to talk about The Last Boy Scout.
All right, let's do it.
So, The Last Boy Scout, let us do a little synopsis over here. Joe is a private detective who's down on his luck. Jimmy is an ex-pro football player who's down on his luck. Together, these two hard luck wash-ups team up to solve the mystery of who killed Jimmy's girlfriend. During their investigation, they're shot at, chased, and beaten by gangsters and harassed by the local police. They're on the cusp of uncovering a huge conspiracy being committed by the owner of the city's football team. They might be able to uncover it if they can dodge their bad luck as well as they dodge bullets. So that's the short synopsis of The Last Boy Scout.
Did you write that, or was that official from like IMDb or something?
No, I definitely wrote that.
Nice.
So yeah.
Clever.
I'm getting I used to copy it, but now I feel like let me try my hand at writing these
Nice.
things.
All right.
So this movie was released December 13th, 1991, produced by Geffen Pictures and Silver Pictures. It grossed over $59 million in the US and Canada on a $43 million budget, and it had mixed reviews. Man, that hurts my heart.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too.
Right. So tell us who was starring. Get us started on who was starring in this movie.
So of course it's Bruce Willis. And I'm glad you let me talk about Bruce Willis, because to me, like, he's one of my favorites. And I feel like this movie was part of the beginning of what I call peak Bruce Willis. He just finished Die Hard 1 and 2, right? So 88 and 90 was Die Hard. A couple of movies up until then, Hudson Hawk, which didn't get a lot of good reviews, he was in there. But this is really, in my opinion, this is the epitome of what I love about Bruce Willis. He's the smart ass, know-it-all. I'll say detective, even though he's a private detective in this, right? He's not actually a cop, at least not anymore. But he, just the smart ass, tough guy. I don't care what you think. I'm gonna punch you in the mouth, get punched in the head, shoot some people, smoke some cigarettes. Right. This is what I love about Bruce Willis. Like the one-liners. I mean, he's fantastic. I mean, there's a list of 1,000 movies this guy's done. Almost 150 to his credit is what he's got if you track him down.
Right.
But he went on a run after this film. So he did I think the one he did right after this is Look Who's Talking, which was probably more of a cash grab for him than anything else. Voice of the Baby, right?
But that was still a good movie.
Yeah, it was entertaining, right? You got Travolta in there, yeah, for sure. But he did a similar movie to this, which is one of my. It's not going to have good reviews, but Striking Distance was another one where he was like an ex-cop. Then he was like it was a Pittsburgh like water cop, or I don't even know. What
Yeah.
But I mean, that was in '93. He went on for Pulp Fiction in '94. The Die Hard 3, which was pretty solid. That's the one he did with Samuel Jackson. That was in '95. Fifth Element was solid. If you ever seen The Jackal, another low unknown, he actually got to play a villain in that movie. I think Armageddon and Sixth Sense, those were two of his bigger commercial films. And then, of course, I'll get probably harassed for this, but my favorite Die Hard was actually Die Hard 4, which didn't come out till it was 7, but I like that one a lot.
Hold on, is that more a good? No, Live Free or Die Hard. Is that
Live Free or Die Hard? Yeah, exactly right.
That was great. It's my favorite ending to a Die Hard movie, because like one of the things you realize when you start watching Die Hard is that the very end of the last act is like he's in a tough situation. Like in the first film, he had to face the bad guys, and he had to come in unarmed. And as it turns out, he had a gun that was taped to his back. So he pulled the gun off his back, started shooting. And then as movies continued, they started to escalate these dire situations. So, and Live Free or Die Hard, what happened is that I've talked about this on multiple podcasts, so I would have to ask my audience to forgive me. But basically, he shoots himself through his own chest to kill the
Right.
bad guy who's behind him, and that's my favorite resolution in a Die Hard movie. Like it can't that couldn't be beat. And then it kind of went off the rails with what's it called? It's a
He
Good Day
did
to
one
Die
with
Hard.
Jai Courtney,
Jai
and they were in
Courtney.
Germany or something.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. It kind of it was too much, I think. It was like
They tried to be too actiony.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It got actiony to the point where you didn't know what was going on, and
Yeah.
you were kind of disappointed, or at least I was.
I I know we're falling off the subject here in this movie, but my favorite line in Die Hard 4 was when he's the guy, he'd captured his daughter, and he's like, "Here, talk some sense to your dad." And she's like, "Hey, daddy, like, there's only 5 left now." You know what I mean? He's like, "Thanks, baby, I'm coming for you." It was,
That's
I was
funny.
like, "Okay." That was all.
Yeah.
It was good casting because now she's just as badass as he is, so that
Right,
was
right,
cool.
right.
Yep.
So,
Anyway, yeah,
yeah,
back on Bruce Willis, that was, like, one of my favorite runs of him, so, um, yeah, anyway, that's why I was happy to talk about Bruce Willis because, it's too bad about his condition now where he's not acting anymore because he's definitely one of the greats, and I there's a lot of films that I really enjoy with him in it, and this being number 1 for me, like we talked, I said, "This is questionably one of my favorite Bruce Willis movies," even though I don't know if it holds up, and we'll get into that, but, I'll watch
right.
it every day. It's great.
Um, yeah, the thing about his condition is that kind of answered a lot of people's questions, like why is he doing all of these movies? Like in the last like couple of years, he was in a lot of movies that were just slockbusters, right? It was like so
Yeah.
they were so bad, direct to video movies, and you felt like, man, he shouldn't be in this, like or he deserves to be in better movies. And then you see why. He was just kind of like he couldn't wait to look for like a more prestigious project, so he had to stock up on some movies that will basically set himself okay financially to the because he knew that he was not going to be able to continue to act forever. So he was
Yeah.
just getting his finances right. And I have a lot of respect for that. So one of the movies that I saw, like when I was doing research on the movies that he was in, I was trying to figure out what I should list. And one of the movies I saw was Motherless Brooklyn. And I was like, man, I should take a look at that. Because this is actually one of his later films. Like, and I thought that it was going to be like one of those bad movies, but it's actually a Edward Norton movie. And I was like, oh, I gotta watch that.
Okay. Was so it was good?
I have no idea. I haven't seen it yet. I just found out about
Okay.
it yesterday. I probably seen like the trailer for it like a while ago because I think it came out in like 2019. But then when I saw the
Okay.
trailer for it again, I was like, oh, this because it's like Edward Norton plays a guy who's like mentally challenged, and Bruce Willis plays a detective who takes him on as like uh, a helper, right? So Ed Norton is helping Bruce Willis solve this particular case. And then Bruce Willis is kind of like taken out of commission. He's taken to the hospital. So now Ed Norton, with his mental deficiencies, he has to go and he has to solve this case. So I'm like, oh yeah, that looks like I need to watch that one.
I mean, Edward Norton's played that type of character a couple times. One of the first movies that he was in that I really loved was he did that movie with Richard Gere, where he had that split personality, and the name of it escapes me right now. And then he does a little bit of that in The Score, which was something he did with De Niro. But I mean, Edward Norton's awesome. Like
Yeah, yeah,
he's an incredible actor. So
absolutely. So moving right along, we have
yep.
Damon Wayans. He plays ex pro football player Jimmy Dix. He's been in Major Pain, I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, Blank Man, and Bulletproof. Not top tier movies by any stretch, but some of them I kind of enjoyed. Like I can kind of enjoy Major Pain, even though when I saw it at the time, it was kind of like meh, because most of his movies where he's actually starring in, they're definitely meh movies.
Yeah.
Except for I'm Going to Get You Sucker. I actually did an episode on that one. It's one of my favorite movies growing up.
Okay.
That's one of the best things that he did. So this is actually a what's his name? I'm trying to remember. It's the guy that had created In Living Color. Uh and I can't remember
Well, his brother, right?
Keenan Ivory Wayans, right? No,
Keenan
is
Ivory
that
Wayans,
his
yeah.
brother? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that is his
that was
brother.
a
Yeah,
family
it's
show
all in
they
the
had, yeah.
family, right? Yeah, right. Because
Yep,
his sister was in there too. So it's
yep.
yeah, it was Keenan Ivory Wayans, and I don't know if it was. I think it was right before he did In Living Color. So yeah, I'm gonna get you, Sucker. It's just
Yep.
a
I tell it,
masterpiece.
I liked Bulletproof. Bulletproof with he was in that with Adam Sandler.
Yeah,
And it's again, it's one of those movies where not critically acclaimed by any means,
right.
but my barometer is, was I entertained? And yes,
Yes,
I was. So
absolutely.
that was
Right,
it.
right, right. Uh,
So,
take us to the next one.
Chelsea Field plays Sarah Hallenbeck, the wife. Um, she's been in a few things, nothing crazy, Masters of the Universe, Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. I don't know that I've ever seen that. Most recently, she's had a repeat appearance on NCIS New Orleans. I don't watch that show, so I don't know if she's a regular or not. I'll be guessing.
Right.
She is married to Scott Bakula, who you
Ah,
might know. He was in Quantum Leap. Um, so maybe she didn't have to work, but I was going through some of her past movies. Like she's been in some things, but more like one episode spins from TV shows or whatnot, and maybe just backup characters. So I'm not sure. I don't know the history of how she got cast in this role. But I mean, she didn't do a bad job. I don't have any problems with her.
yeah, I
But
thought she
you
did a
just
great job. I
you
like
just don't
that.
see her leaping.
Right. I liked that she played a distressed wife very well.
Yeah.
And yeah, Harley Davidson and Marvel Man. I remember it when it came out. It's not something that I watched. As a matter of fact, a lot of people didn't watch that one. Even Don Johnson, who was one of the stars of the movie, it was Don Johnson. Oh, I can't remember the dude's name.
Mickey
Mickey
Rourke
Rourke.
was in that?
Yeah, Mickey
Yeah.
Rourke.
Yep.
So even Don Johnson on a talk show said, "Yeah, we didn't reinvent the wheel." So just gently telling the audience that it's not a great movie.
That's crazy.
And she's been. I don't watch NCIS New Orleans either, but I think that's the one with Scott Bakula. So that's probably why she's on there all the time.
Yeah, you know what? I think you're probably right.
Yeah, yeah,
Good for them. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Absolutely, it's good show, Scott. So
Well played, sir.
right, well played. So up next is Nova Willingham. They played Sheldon Marcone. Oh, he played Sheldon Marcone. He's been in City Slickers, Fire in the Sky, and Ace Ventura, Pet Detectives, and a bunch of other movies. It was funny, right? Because he's a face that you just see in a lot of movies. He's just there in a lot of movies and TV shows, always kind of playing a slightly villainous character, if not a full villain. But
Yep.
or just a cowboy like he was in City Slickers. Just if you need a cowboy, a good old boy, if you will, then then Noble Willingham is your man.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's I'm going to quote here, that guy, you know what I mean, who's in a lot of shows and a lot of movies, and he just shows up. He's an easy cast.
Right, right.
Yep. So one of my favorite characters in this too was Taylor Negron. He was the main hitman or go-to bad guy, if you will, for Sheldon Marcone, right? This guy, I don't know if you got a chance to look his backstory up. I mean, this guy's got over 130 movies to his credit. He did pass away in 2015, so rest in peace to Milo, as I'll always know him as. But he, what I liked about him in this particular movie was, we talked about, if you're going to do a podcast, like have a shtick, have kind of a gimmick, right? Well, this guy was awesome because he called everyone by their full name,
Yeah,
and it's just funny. Like he's a proper hitman.
yes,
If you will.
yes,
right?
yeah.
It's like, I'm going to kill you, Joseph.
Right,
right. And he's like, what?
Right.
Like, what's going on here? So, but he was really cool. I liked him. And like, I'm not going to list all his movies in here. A couple of things that stood out to me, if one of his first movies was, he was actually the pizza guy in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He shows up in the classroom with Sean Penn's pizza. And, but he's been in a lot of things. I don't think he's carried any shows ever, but he's another that guy.
Yeah, definitely.
You see him a lot.
I noticed that a lot of the cast, like with the rest of the cast, they're like character actors that have been in a lot of TV shows and movies, and it's like, and so recognize them instantly. You're like, you may not know their name, but you know that guy. So one of those guys is
Yep.
Danielle. Well, no, not her. She was brand new at this point. So Danielle Harris, she played Darian Hallebeck. That's the daughter, and she's been
Yep.
in Don't Tell Mom, The Babysitter's Dead, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So she's maintained her visibility and her film career, but she was
Was she
great in this movie.
the most recent one, the Tarantino?
Yeah,
Once
I
Upon a
guess
Time?
it
Okay.
is. I think so. I think it was the most
I
recent
don't
one.
remember hearing that, but I'm gonna go back and watch it again. And I wasn't looking for it, but now I'm gonna.
Right. I'm 90% sure. I didn't know that there was another one called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but I'm not. You know how IMDb lists like the most recent movies near the top, so it was near
Sure.
the top. So I'm 90% sure that it was a Tarantino
It was probably that one
movie.
then, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah,
Okay.
she was. She's one of my favorite characters in this movie. She's just a brat.
Well, there's something, and I shouldn't say this because I have kids, but there's something about like a 13-year-old dropping F-bombs. You know what I mean? Like, I love it. I just love it. Like, if they know the difference, I don't want them doing it in school, obviously. And don't call me the names that you're calling, right? But yeah, it's I don't mind it.
Yeah.
So this movie also had one of the first appearances of Halle Berry, which I think I can safely say for all of mankind that we're thankful for, because she is awesome. In this, she played a little a smallish role in this, where she was a stripper in trouble and doing things. But this leapfrogged her in a lot of ways. She wasn't even the first choice for this, and I forget the name who they were trying to get in there, but I'm glad they brought her in. My personal favorite for her was Swordfish. I love that movie. She was with Hugh Jackman and John Travolta and a handful of others. That's a great movie. But she's been in things. She was a Bond girl. She was in Gothica, Monsters Ball, some X-Men films, right? So she's been all over the place. Halle Berry, and she's just as good looking now as she was back in 1991 in this movie. So
yeah,
good job.
She's definitely the type of person, or the type of movie star that draws me to the theaters. Like it was one of the draws that drew me to John Wick 3. Like I was gonna watch John Wick 3 anyway. Like that was just
Right.
It was like a non-starter. I was like, I knew I was going to watch John Wick 3, but then you add Halle Berry. That's like, okay, now there's some sugar in it. You added some spice and sugar to.
Oh, you putting candy bars on top of the
right.
That's
It's like you didn't even have to show me Halle Berry. It's so much better now. It's like instantly. And so I also was drawn to watch Moonfall. I would not have watched Moonfall in the theater had Halle Berry not been in it, because
right.
It was like, so it was like when you see the premise of the film and you see that it was done by the Godzilla dude. I'm like, and what's his, I can't remember his name, but he produced Godzilla and what's the other one? Independence Day. And then most of his disaster movies have not been fulfilling like as I need them to be. Like I need this to fill my appetite and hit those dopamine levels, but his movies hadn't been doing it. So Moonfall was one of those movies, and the only reason I went to see it because she was in it, and it was just as bad as I thought it was going to be. So it's not like, so it basically met my expectations.
I feel like you just set yourself up for another theme show, and we'll do like top 5 or top 10 disaster movies of all time, and just kind of tear some of those apart. And so think about that. That's a
right,
absolutely. Awesome. Yeah. So I'm glad I'm with you though. There's something about I don't know, something really sexy about these super attractive women that are just badasses that kick everyone's butt. As long as it's not my butt they're kicking, then I'm on board for that.
So finally, I have here Bruce McGill, another face that you see all over the place. He played Mike Matthews. He's been in Law Abiding Citizen, Time Cop, and The Insider. Just a mean cop, I guess, cop type, cop-ish.
Yep. Old school cop guy.
Right. So
I think he was just in Reacher. Did you watch Reacher on
oh
Amazon?
my God, I'm in the process of watching it. Like I got a
Okay.
million shows that I'm watching, and it's kind of hard to jump back and forth between shows. And then I made the mistake of buying the entire series of Buck Rogers, and I want to get through that too. So I am trying to get to these shows, and it's a challenge
Yep.
basically. So every now and then I'll get through an episode of Reacher. I think I'm the last episode I watched was the third episode, and then when new TV comes on, and if it's the show I really like, then I'll push everything to the back burner and watch
I
that
see.
show. So I did that with a recent show was Star Trek Picard.
Okay.
So that was a very good series. And then actually it was Star Trek Picard and the Mandalorian. So I pushed everything to the back burner to watch those shows.
Of course. Well,
So I could get to, and then after now that those shows are finished, and I got a few more weeks before another Star Trek show comes on, so I can get to watching other
you got
things.
time.
Yeah.
Well, I would definitely recommend The Reacher as a binge watch. I just rewatched it actually earlier this week, as a matter of fact. So it's only 8 episodes. I love that the actor. I don't know his name, so I apologize, but he's fantastic in it. So
Yeah, he is great. And I've only read one novel with the Reacher. I remember like the Reacher movie with Tom Cruise, and
yeah, Cruise did a
that was,
couple. Yeah,
and he's good, but he's not what the writer had envisioned as
correct.
Reacher. So for the writer and for a lot of the fans, Reacher's mass is important to that character.
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise, everybody knows Tom Cruise is short. So nobody he doesn't bring that mass factor to the Reacher character. So yeah, he can fight, but yeah, you can get any small character who can fight, and that always looks good. And Tom Cruise is such a great actor that you believe him when he does stuff. So it's fine, but it's not what we envision. So you get the new actor. I don't remember his name too, but this
Yeah,
new
he's
actor
awesome
is
though.
gigantic. Like he's a
Yeah.
gigantic dude. And it's like and so when there are passages in the book where Reacher doesn't say anything. Like he just looks at somebody and just allows his presence to intimidate somebody and to like walking away from the fight or whatever. And so the new actor is able to do that in a way
Yeah.
that the Tom Cruise character couldn't, because Tom Cruise just isn't. Because like you look at Tom Cruise and he can be all intimidating or whatnot, but you're still tempted to fight him. You're gonna fight him anyway because it's not that big. But
Right.
this other actor is, because he's gigantic, and it's like he'll walk into a situation, and in the book it'll say something like Reacher says nothing, and
It's so true though, man. It's so
right,
true.
right. So I love that about the character. So yeah, I definitely want to finish that.
Well, I'm
So
going to check in with you shortly. I'm going to make sure that you finished Reacher. I'm going to hold you to that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Fine. Catch me outside. So
Yeah. That's right.
So go ahead, tell us about the director.
So directed by Tony Scott. This was he's done so many movies. He's teamed up with Denzel a lot, but just a couple of big name shows for him. Unstoppable, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, 2 Train movies. If you're into those, both great movies though.
2 Train movies, both starring Denzel Washington.
Right. And then, but also then Man on Fire again with Denzel. And I'm telling you, these are all gold in my book. All 3 of these movies are awesome. Spy Game was okay. I didn't love it. Enemy of the State, I did love. Will Smith in that. I thought that was his, I don't want to say breakout performance, because I mean we've all seen Fresh Prince, but as far as the big screen goes, this was really, in my opinion, Will Smith's leapfrog into stardom, and then he was able to build off that a little bit. But this my favorite one there. But yeah, Tony Scott, I think he's teamed up with his brother. Is Ridley Scott his brother, I believe, right? They've done some things. So, but back in 91, this is before he became that person, I suppose. And yeah, he put some good action together.
It's just amazing. You have Tony Scott and Ridley Scott, they're brothers, and they're both incredible directors. So
yeah,
I just think that it was magnificent that he's been able to have basically just as high caliber of movies as Ridley Scott. So it's just the Scott
Yep.
brothers are putting out some fantastic, or they did.
What do you think
Tony
like their
Scott, rest in peace.
Thanksgiving's like, right? I think they have competitions at Thanksgiving to see like who's got the better movies.
I mean, maybe,
You
maybe.
know?
I know there are people who aren't even related that do that. Like there was a thing with George Lucas and Steven Spielberg having a competition with E.T. and
Yeah.
Star Wars. So yeah, I agree that I think there's some competition there. And like you, I really enjoy Enemy of the State. I thought that Enemy of the State with like the combination of Will Smith and Gene Hackman playing a different type of character than
Yes.
he usually plays. It was just magic, right? It was just I just loved that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was some great movies. I need to put Enemy of the State on the list. So I think Enemy of the State probably came out in 2000 or something like that, or after the 90s. So I
Yeah.
have to do some research. If it came out too late into the 2000s, then it probably won't qualify for the show that I'm doing. But yeah, I do thoroughly enjoy that movie. You know, sometimes I make exceptions.
Well, if
Sometimes
you have to, right? Sure.
sometimes I talk about movies that are outside of the target movies, but there's so many movies out there. I'll get around to it. So, anyways, this
Yep.
movie was written by Shane Black and Greg Hicks. So Black is the screenplay, and he wrote the screenplay and story, and he's also written he's written a bunch of movies, but included in those movies, he's written The Predator, The Lethal Weapon, and The Nice Guys, and obviously he's responsible for all the Lethal Weapon movies. Like anytime they make a new Lethal Weapon property, he's obviously going to get credit for it because he created the characters. But The Predator is an interesting find because he wrote Die Hard while he was starring in while he was starring in the first Predator movie.
Yeah.
So it's like he's come full circle back to the Predator. And then you have Hicks, who's only written this movie. So the only credit that he has in his filmography is this movie. So I thought that was kind of weird, but sometimes that happens. It's like it's not. I don't know, because I thought that maybe he wrote a novel or a short story that this movie was based off of. But nope, he was one and done.
One and done. It's like I'm out of this Hollywood gig, man. I'm done.
Right.
That's awesome. Well, Shane Black is he's done a lot of things, and you know, there's a lot of like crossover with this movie and the Lethal Weapon movies. And I know we'll probably get into that a little bit as we talk more about the show, but yeah. So anyway, so as far as the music goes for this, right? Is that okay?
Yeah.
A good slide in there, right? So the music was composed by Michael Kamen, he's got a long list of things as well. This guy's done a lot of things. He's responsible for all of the Lethal Weapon movies, as well as, you know, X-Men, Frequency, you know, the Iron Giant. Like, he's just a composer who's involved. He actually, I grew up a big Metallica fan. He actually was the composer for the Metallica S&M concert that they did, which is kind of a lighter take. So it's not just movies he's doing; he's also doing music. So, so once I found that out, I was actually listening to it this morning. I was like, oh, let me just kind of get in the zone with a little lighter version of Metallica for this morning, you know. So it was good.
Another thing that's interesting is that while I was watching this movie, I really didn't notice the soundtrack. It, like, the music wasn't necessarily impacting. It was just very complimentary of the action that was going on. So I listened to the soundtrack separately last night, and I was like, oh, this is actually a really good soundtrack. I was like, I kind of enjoyed this soundtrack. It was actually pretty good. So, like, sometimes you get soundtracks that although they complement the movie, they don't really stand up well on their own, just listening to it. But I think the soundtrack for this movie, or the musical score for this movie, really stands up really well. Michael Kamen, I believe, knows what he's doing. So,
well, the proof's in the pudding, right?
Yeah,
because all the things he has. Yeah,
the proof is definitely in the pudding.
Yep.
So that's it for the opening credits. And if you're enjoying the show, remember that you can get t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, face masks, jerseys, and more at our website at backlickcinema.com/shop. So now that we've talked about the filmmakers in this movie, let's transition over and talk about our favorite parts. right, my man Mark, why don't you start us off? Tell us what some of your favorite parts were in The Last Boy Scout.
All right. Uh, well, my first answer is going to be a broad answer because pretty much every Bruce Willis one liner is why I watch these movies. Right.
Right.
Anytime he says something funny, stupid, smart ass, but then does something tough guy to follow it up. Um, so a few things that stand out to me uh was the touch me again and I'll kill you. That's my
Yes.
favorite
Yes.
part, right? So uh, you know, who doesn't want to say that if they're at a club or a restaurant and someone, pokes them on the shoulder and it's like, touch me again and I'll kill you. But
Right.
then be able to back it up, which poses the question, can you kill a man by jamming his nose into his brain? I don't know. I don't know if that's a discussion for today, but either way, good entertainment. And questionably one of my favorite parts of that. Um, the second favorite, I'll say my favorite quote of this is when they're first Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans are first walking into his house, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got a daughter," and he's like, "Oh yeah, what's she like?" He's like, "Well, she's like 13, and if you look at her funny, I'm gonna jam an umbrella up your ass and open it." So, it's just one of those his continual tough guidelines where you believe that he'll actually do that. So
Yes.
you
Yes.
say, okay, you know. So those are some of my favorite parts. It's just like I said, any tough guy line. I mean, and there's a 50 more of them that we won't get into all at once here, uh but those are my two faves. How about you? Which ones do you like?
Right. Well, all the ones that you mentioned, but there are also the more subtle ones. So not necessarily the tough guy, but he's basically he's enthusiastic about being down on his luck, right? It seems. So he's like the type of guy that sleeps in his car. Um it's kind of like Bruce Willis in Die Hard, except he's even worse off. And like
Yeah.
the Bruce Willis in Die Hard, John McClane was relatively well put together, right? Especially in the first movie, where he had some relationship problems, but he was just a regular guy, an everyday guy, and it kind of like a bad situation. Where in this, when it's kind of flipped up, it was like a dude that was like he was like a star in his profession. He was like at the top of his game, and then he was brought down low. But it's like he hit rock bottom and he stayed there, right? Because
Yeah.
he wasn't motivated to get back up again, to the point where he has daily affirmations. Do you remember the daily affirmations that used to be
On
promoted?
Saturday Night Live, right?
I mean,
Stuart Smalley.
yeah, but that used to be a thing. The reason it's a joke is, for one, I forgot his name, the Stuart Smalley, the guy who plays Stuart Smalley, he was actually doing that, so he's kind of making fun of himself. And another thing, that was like all the rage back then, doing daily affirmations, like looking at yourself in the mirror and telling yourself that you're good enough, that you're great, that people like you, and all that kind of stuff. But the thing about this movie, it turned it on its head, and so Hallenbeck was doing anti daily affirmations. Nobody likes you. You're
That's
a
right.
bum.
That's right.
Right, Stack? And I was, and
Everybody hates
your
you.
wife hates
Yeah.
you, right? Just like every day, and he wakes up in the morning, and he says this to himself, like anti daily affirmations. So they're not affirmations. I guess they're defamations. He wakes up. I just love that about
love it.
that character. And so it's like, and then even like, how like most movies, they kind of start off with a bang, that they start off with the main character demonstrating just how badass he is, goes in and he takes out all the bad guys in like the first 5 minutes, and then they open up with the regular story of the movie. So this movie doesn't open up that way. It opens up with Bruce Willis, Hallenbeck, sleeping in his car, and then some kids go up to the car. They find a squirrel. They throw a dead squirrel on him.
Yes.
Like first, like they're trying to poke him to see if he's gonna wake up. He doesn't wake up because he's dead. He's dead sleep. And then they take a dead squirrel and then they put it on him. He still doesn't move, like not even reacting to a dead squirrel. And then they say, "Take a squatch," and then they start reaching the car, and he wakes up instantly. So I was like, and then the little boy starts squealing. Well, they should squeal because he points his gun at them because he doesn't know who they are. But his reaction is so razor sharp. It's like he wakes up instantly. He points his gun. He's like, he's instantly up, right?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
almost like them threatening to take something. It's like it filtered through his subconscious, and he was instantly alert. So that I love that part, and that's how the movie opens. So I like that it opens with something like interesting. Uh, but the very first thing was interesting. It was with Billy Blanks. So the movie opens with Billy Blanks. He's being threatened. All right, so here's the funny
Oh,
part.
Billy Cole.
Yeah, Billy Cole. Billy Billy Cole played by Billy Blanks.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
So we know why his name was Billy in the movie.
There you go. Yep.
So do you remember Billy Blanks? Do you know anything about him?
As an actor?
Just as anybody, like as a regular celebrity or anybody that
No, no, I
was
don't know
that
who he
level.
is besides this movie.
So the reason that he's in this movie is because he was a trainer to the stars. He's famous for training like Hollywood movie stars to get in shape for a role. And he's known throughout Hollywood, especially at that time. And then he was able to parlay that into a series of successful VHS workout tapes. I forgot what it was called. But
Really?
yeah, it was like, you know how Jane Fonda had Jazzercise or
Yeah.
whatever. He had the same thing, and it was just as successful. You used to see Billy Blanks commercials all the time. He was also able to play that into small roles in films, and this was one of those roles. This is one of the most visible roles because uh I don't remember seeing him in other movies, but him in this movie is one of the most visible roles that he had. So he's a football player, and he's threatened like your team has to win this game, or there are going to be consequences. Like we have money right in this game. So this
Yep.
is the exact opposite of how you throw a game, right? So
So you shouldn't bring a gun onto the field and shoot
no,
people?
that's not what I mean. It's like when you want to a team to lose, then you convince the players on that team, or more likely a boxer, to throw the fight. So it's like, yeah, you're favored to win this fight. We want you to throw the fight. We'll win a bunch of money. That's how it usually goes. You don't threaten a boxer where you have to beat him up, or we're going to kill you. Like it never works that way. It's like the opposite of how this works. So it's already kind of weird. It's like if
Well,
you
you know
would.
what? You make a good point, right? So if you're trying to get LA to win the game, wouldn't you bribe, say they were playing Cleveland in the movie, wouldn't you bribe the Cleveland quarterback
Right.
to throw a few picks?
Right.
You know what I
You
mean?
would
So,
bribe
okay, good
right, you
call.
would bribe Cleveland to throw the game so that LA would win. That's what you're supposed to do. But they're
Yeah,
trying to bribe the star football player of the Stallions to win the game, and that they're losing. So
right, you're gonna threaten them, so I need you to score more touchdowns.
right,
Like, well, that's what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm
right.
doing that whether you threaten me or not.
Right. And the thing about it is like the Stallions are the underdogs. They've been on a losing streak. So obviously if they can win, then the gangsters would win a bunch of money.
That's where the money's at,
Right.
right?
But so he takes out a gun and starts shooting. He has the football. He's running to the touchdown, and he's able to dodge a couple of other like blockers or whatever. And then another blocker gets in his way. He decides, forget all of this. He pulls a pistol out of his shorts and just starts shooting on the way to the touchdown. And then he makes the touchdown, and he says, "Ain't life a bitch?" And then he commits suicide. So that was all. That was incredible. That was impactful. That was an impactful moment in my life. he Even my son Zachary noted how impactful that particular scene was. The football player going through all of these commotions. But that was I don't know if I don't want to say it's my favorite moment, but it's definitely one of the most noted moments in this movie was him running at night in the rain. I actually looked at it, I was like, do they even play football in the rain? And apparently they will play football until there's a lightning storm or a flood. Like they don't care.
Yeah. Well, it's like while we're on the football subject of this, right? So I have so many issues with like just this the way that they portrayed a football game. Because
Right.
even in 1991, like I mean, did you have stadium lights? Because why was it so dark in the
Yeah,
stadium?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and I know it's a movie, so I don't want to, tear it apart too much. But so
Yeah.
this guy goes into halftime, gets the phone call, right? Puts a gun in his jock. So if you watch, they said, "Oh, just like there's 2 minutes left in the game," and that's when he pulls the gun out. So you
Right.
just played a half an hour of football essentially, with a gun in your jockstrap, in hopes that maybe you don't need it, but you're a running back, right? So you're probably getting a good 10, 15 carries between in the second half. The gun doesn't fall out. It doesn't, you know, like there's just I know it's nitpicky a little bit there, but so he waits to the end, pulls it out, but then just like I said, the football scenes in general, um, I don't mind the rain. I think that adds a nice touch to it, but I mean, how about some stadium lights?
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
clearly
yeah.
stadium lights because it
Right,
makes its appearance at the end of the movie. So like that the lights exist.
right,
Call attention to them a little bit. A little dark
right.
on the camera shots for me.
Definitely the director's choice. And yeah, it was really dark. And I noticed that that's kind of a theme in a lot of movies, sports movies. When they want to make it more dramatic, they'll make it so it's happening in the rain, even when it makes no sense. Like baseball, they'll definitely call a game when it starts
Yeah.
drizzling. So yeah, that's. I think there's a famous movie called The Fan where people complain about there being a rainstorm during the baseball game. It's like they were supposed to call that game. They weren't supposed to continue to play.
Yeah. I think actually the fan was that another Tony Scott movie?
I think it was. It was
I think it
I'm trying to think of what his name is.
Yeah, De Niro was in that with Wesley
Yeah,
Snipes.
Snipes. That's what I was trying
Um,
to remember.
I don't I thought it was, and that could be part of it, right? So here you are where it's the same problems in the same two movies by the same director.
Yeah, yeah.
So there you go.
Well, he likes his dramatic. I know he knew that you didn't have rain in a baseball game, but that's what he wanted. It was like it's for the drama. You don't
Drama
understand.
effect.
Don't get in the way of
Yep.
my art. Yeah, what they're doing is sports. I'm doing art over here.
Awesome.
So I talk about this like I got a bunch of them and I'm gonna let you finish like Kanye West says, but I wanted to get this out.
Sure, sure.
So there was a what you call it. So the whole scene where he discovers that his wife is cheating on him is great. And when me and Zachary are watching movies, I almost never talk to him because I want him to experience the movie this pretty much the same way I experienced it. And I don't like talking during movies in general, but it is one particular instance when Bruce Willis or Joe Hallenbeck looks around. I asked Zachary, what's he looking for? And Zach immediately picked it up. He says, yeah, you looking for the other dude. He knows there's another dude in the house. And the reason I asked him that is because when I first watched this movie, I did not know that
You
that's what
noticed,
Bruce
right?
Willis was looking for. Like I didn't pick up on the clues. I didn't pick up on the shower. I still, even when I rewatched the movie, I always fail to pick up on the shower. And the reason I fail to pick up on the shower is because filmmakers will very often have somebody like take a shower and then in the very next scene they're bone dry. Like they do
Right.
that all the time where they're under like people famously talk about that in Big Trouble in Little China, where the whole team is swimming underwater. I just listened to this on a different podcast. And then
Yeah.
not Snake Plissken, the dude.
Yeah, Kurt Russell's character,
Kurt
yeah.
Russell. Kurt Russell comes out of
Jack something, right? What's his last
Burton.
name? I forget.
I think it's Jack Burton.
Yeah. Well, Jack Burton used to say.
Right. Jack Burton comes out of the sewer, and in the very next scene, they're all bone dry. Jack Burton's hair is perfect. Right. So so I didn't pick it up on The Last Boy Scout because it just never occurred to me that her hair would still be damp and wet after the shower's running. This, because Joe notices the steam all over the place. He knows that she just came out of the shower or is pretending to. And then the other thing was the toilet seat picking up, which I would have never picked up on. One of the things that never happened when I was growing up is my mom complaining about the toilet seat up. And she was a woman raising 3 boys. That toilet seat was always up. She never yelled at us about. We never thought about it, right? It's so I didn't start having somebody yell at me about toilet seats until I started having girlfriends. So I never picked up on the toilet seat thing. Zach picked up on it right away, but that was great. And then with the whole conversation and everything that happened during that scene, and then at the end of the scene when Joe was like head or gut, is like,
Yeah. And that was a theme throughout the movie too. He does that a couple times, right?
Right,
He brings it back at the end, which is nice.
All right, so
that's cool.
What's another one of your favorite scenes?
I think that when Damon Wayans goes to rescue him, and they're about to shoot him, and then his daughter shows up with the puppet, furry
Yeah,
Tom.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, that's fun too because what you see in there, right? And this is what you see throughout this movie a little bit. So Bruce Willis is before him getting into Die Hard, he was on the show Moonlighting. I don't know if you ever watched that
Yes,
show, but
I love that
um
show.
and even a little further back, he was in a Seagram's commercial. He was their spokesperson. So if you look up Seagram wine coolers, I don't know if you've ever seen him, but anyway, so he has like a playful, funny side to Bruce Willis, right? So
Right.
and he brings it out in a lot of his movies. This one as well. And this is just one of those moments where he grabs it and he's making jokes. At the very beginning, when the pimp looking guy tries to shoot him in the alley, and suddenly he's telling jokes again. He has this switch he can flip, which makes him so dynamic, which is why he's one of my favorites because he just pulls it off. He's a dude that I want to hang out with. I want to hang out with 1991 Bruce Willis. That's what I want to
Right,
hang out with.
right.
So yeah, just he has the puppet, once he realizes there's a gun in it, he's like, okay, yeah, sure. I'll make this thing talk. And then it's like, then they escape from the bad guys. So
Right, right,
I
right.
enjoy that scene as well. I won't quote the joke for language purposes, but but I just love, hey, why did Uncle Milo cross the road?
Right.
Honestly, that's one of those scenes where my buddy Jay, if he's listening, shout out to you, Jake the Snake. That's one of those things we would just always quote all the time for some reason. Just one of those movies that stood out to us, one of those scenes.
Right, right. Yeah. If you listen to a couple of my podcasts, I'm language free on this show.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, I don't have a lot of it's not like I'm saying I'm dropping F bombs every third sentence, but I definitely let them fly. So just
Okay,
feel free.
okay,
You don't have to hold back. But there
okay.
is
Fair enough.
but you mentioned the pimp looking dude. So this is when they take Joe to the back and they said just take him around the corner and kill him. Right. So this is very early in the movie.
Where
And
he's
this
pretending to be drunk.
right, right, right. And
Yeah.
so he's down on the ground. The pimp looking dude was pointing his gun at him. And then he starts joking about his mother. And one of the jokes I thought was so funny. So hold on, let me see if I can find it. I wrote it down.
It's like,
down.
ask me how fat she
Oh,
is.
yeah. Yeah, ask me how fat your wife was. Cause like I think he said he had sex with his wife or whatever. He's like, ask me how fat she was. He's like, all right, how fat was she? And so Joe says, I had to roll her in flour and look for the wet spot. I love
And
that.
at the time, like if you don't get the joke, like if you've ever, cooked pizza or whatever, and you
Right, right,
realize,
right, right, right.
but yeah, that's
I got the joke instantly. It was so funny.
perfect.
And so
But that's just it's a testament to how like the Bruce Willis's personality that just comes out and his ability to deliver these kind of one-liners, which
right,
made him
right.
what he is. Yep.
And a lot of the things I like about the movies when they get themselves into situations and then they're able to get themselves out of the situation, like how he got himself out of being executed by the pimp looking dude. So yeah,
Yeah.
all of that was. I think there was something where he had gotten a dude to get close to him and he jabbed him in the neck, in the throat with a knife or something. I can't
I think
remember
it was
how
a,
he got
I
out.
think it was a, I think it was a broken bottle. Off
Yeah,
the it
yeah.
was in the alley. Yeah.
He was in the alley. There's trash everywhere, so there happened to be a broken bottle, like right where he was at, just right within
Conveniently.
reach,
Yeah.
and just like, I mean, you're in a dirty alley. It's going to be some broken bottles. That's why people don't go in the trash filled alleys, specifically because there are broken bottles and needles and just dangerous objects everywhere. So that was, I loved that, and then choked him and then basically left him there.
Yep. Yep.
So another thing I liked was the so when Joe finally meets Jimmy Dix, the football player, and there's a scene when they're in a police station and he asks him, like, Jimmy Dix is wearing all this expensive stuff. So Joe asks Jimmy Dix, like, how much were those pants? And oh snap, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, I just
Yep.
oh, I know what happened. My screen just went dark for no reason. Anyways. So Joe asked Jimmy, how much are those pants? And Jimmy says $650. And Joe says, they ain't got a TV or nothing.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. But again, that's those funny one-liners. I mean, they're from start to finish, and honestly, that's what makes 90 movies, the 90 action kind of cliche movies. Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Willis. You know, pick an action star at this point, right?
Right,
It's what made them what they are.
right,
Kind of cheesy, but I'll take all that cheese. I
right,
love it.
right. Oh, I didn't put this in the show notes. I meant to put that. I meant to introduce Joe Hallenbeck as Joe Cornelius Hallenbeck.
Cornelius. I almost said it. I almost said it, and I was like, maybe we'll wait. Call me Cornelius. Tell anyone I'll kill you.
I also liked how like Joe is annoyed with Milo all the time, and he
Yeah.
says being assaulted by the inventor of Scrabble.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Um,
one last thing. What was one last part that you really liked about this movie?
um, as far as favorite scenes go, I go back to like what I liked about maybe about Bruce Willis, where I feel like he always had an out. He always had a contingency plan of getting out of these, like, and part of it's his character, right? He's the smartest guy in the room, but he looks like he's the dumbest guy in the room. But he's the guy who had it all figured out. Like you said, the detective scene at the beginning, as soon as they get into the football stadium at the end, he's like, you do this, you do that. Like, you go find a cop. Like, let's go. And they just, yeah, like, you figured out the clues. He's in a highly enlightened position. Like, oh, he's at the lights or, what, like just the way that he's a detective. And you're like, man, like, I've played detective games and I don't figure that stuff out. Right.
Right,
So
right,
I have
right.
respect for, like, I mean, obviously it's written that way, right? But I just like what they brought in, and yeah, it's all around for me.
Yeah, yeah. I really enjoy. I loved his detective skills. I'm glad that they introduced those elements into a detective character, and just instead of having things fall in his lap. I liked that they had found some evidence in the girlfriend's house, and one of them happened to be a tape. And they put the tape in Joe's car. Joe's has like an old beat up car. And they have a audio cassette. Put the audio cassette in the audio cassette player in the car, and then they listen to it. And then, I guess Jimmy, he gets
Yeah.
impatient. He wants to fast forward and we want to get to the really juicy stuff. And it was like Joe's like, no, no, fast forward Easter tapes. And it's like, it's not so much that this is a favorite part, but it's definitely a part that impacted me. Is like when I think about this movie, this is one of going to be the scenes that I think about. And I think about it because it brings so much nostalgia. Because we all, when you grew up with cassette tapes, you all remember that time when that tape recorder or the tape cassette player ate
Ate
your
the tape.
tape. I was like, oh
Oh,
my God. Or like it's threatening to eat your tape. So you have to carefully and slowly pull out the
you got to take a
magnetic tape.
pencil and like wind it
Right,
back
right,
in, and
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah. So
It's
when you watch this with your son, did he know what a cassette player
yeah,
was?
yeah, he knows what that's that. He had I still
Okay.
had some of that stuff lying around when he was growing up. So he knew that. He knew about and the parts that we mentioned, those were also a lot of his favorite parts, especially the head or gut part. And
Yeah.
another part that we noted was like the final scene. I like the final scene, but there are some things that are kind of they kind of hand wavy the final scene. So it's either because the filmmakers inexperienced with police officers or them not really caring. They're just trying to show something thrilling. So there's a scene where the police are shooting at like the Joe and Milo are on top of the lights that are lighting the football game. Milo is up there because he has an assault rifle with a scope, so he's trying to kill the senator. Yeah, he's trying to kill the senator because the
Yeah.
senator doesn't want to play ball or whatever. He's not taking a bribe, and the so they have to. I think it's Jimmy goes to save the senator, and then Joe goes up to the top to stop Milo or to fight him or
That's right.
whatever. So then Milo just starts shooting indiscriminately when he doesn't hit the target. He just starts shooting. And then the police get up there and then they start shooting at both Joe and Milo. So the thing about it is that if it were the police shooting at Joe and Milo, because there was both the police in the helicopter, and then there was the police on like I guess the other side of the stadium, on a different
The
part of the stadium.
railings. Yeah.
And they were also shooting at Joe and Milo. And I don't know why the police helicopter stopped shooting. I know Milo had taken a couple of shots at the police helicopter, but I don't think they would have stopped shooting. And then the police at the other part of the stadium, they would not. I don't think they would have stopped shooting either. They would have continued to shoot until both men were dead. It's not like,
right. Oh yeah,
it's not
yeah.
like
They definitely would have shot Bruce Willis. In that scene.
right. It's not like Joe could have said, "Oh, hold on, I'm one of the good guys," and they was like, "Okay, stop. He's one of the good guys." Because already the police chief, he's not a chief. He's more like a lieutenant. So the police lieutenant already thinks that Joe is involved somehow. Like he actually thinks that Joe was involved with the murder or that Joe murdered his best friend because his best friend was cheating on his wife. That's what the police chief thinks. So Joe is kind of a suspect. He's always getting pulled to the police station and getting yelled at, but they don't have any evidence. But the lieutenant is determined to get something on Joe because as far as he's concerned, Joe is a deadbeat and needs to be put in his place, right? So this is his chance.
Yep.
So it seems to me, like you said, that they would not have stopped shooting until both men were dead. But it's kind of hand wavy. It's we're gonna kind of skim past that because this is a movie, not real life.
Right, of course. You gotta have a happy ending. That was the theme of a lot of movies.
It would have been a messed up movie
if
they had did the real life choice instead of doing the movie choice.
Yeah, and actually just killed off the main characters.
Right. Oops.
I mean, even if he was like shot in the arm or something, shoot him in the leg. I don't know, like.
Right.
If a stray bullet unscathed.
Yeah, if a stray bullet had connected and he went down and didn't get up and then they killed Milo, it would have been different and unsatisfying, but it would have been more realistic.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I would have liked it if that was the ending that they went for. It's like, especially back in the 90s, it makes total sense. Only looking through it at a lens from the 2023 lens that you realize that how it probably would have went.
That's got to be in the top list of most gruesome deaths, though, at the end, through the helicopter blades.
Yeah. Well, he was already dead. He probably could have been saved. But yeah, like you said, he went through the helicopter blades. Like, oh no, he'll probably survive. Well, not anymore.
Yeah, nope.
I don't know if you play Mortal Kombat.
I have played. I don't regularly, but yeah, back in the day. Yeah.
So in Mortal Kombat 11, which is the latest game, there is a fatality where one of the characters shoots someone through helicopter blades. Now, I'm not sure if this was inspired by The Last Boy Scout, but it's one of my favorite fatalities. So, but the thing is that they, remember, this is Mortal Kombat. It's not real life. So she shoots, it's like she kicks somebody into the air and she uses guns. So she shoots the body as it's going up into the air. She shoots the body into the air, into the blades of a waiting helicopter that she called to the scene for that express purpose of chopping up the dude after he goes to the helicopter blade. It's, like I said, just go look in YouTube and see some of these finishers on Mortal Kombat 11. They are bananas.
I'm writing that down right now. I'm going to look at some fatalities.
Remember, it's Mortal Kombat 11. As you can tell, they are not slowing down the franchise. Mortal Kombat 12 is rumored to come out this year, and
because they're doing another movie for that too. They're putting another sequel from the movie that came out a few years ago.
Oh, really?
So they'll just keep running that IP until people stop paying money. So
yeah, which will not happen as long as they have great Mortal Kombat games. They even when they've had bad Mortal Kombat games, they were able to bounce back. It's like we know you love us, money, right?
Yeah.
We're just gonna keep doing it until you stop, until fighting games go out of style. I think that's how that's going to go.
Yeah, we love our violence.
Right, absolutely.
Yep.
So we've talked about our favorite parts, and this movie is chock full of them. I have fond memories of watching this movie back in the day when I was growing up. I think I mainly watched it on VHS. I don't think I got a chance to watch it in the theaters. So we're going to transition now. We're going to talk about the trivia that was derived from The Last Boy Scout.
All right.
All right, we're back to talk about the trivia. We gather our trivia from IMDb. As far as I can tell, these are all pretty accurate. But IMDb, it'd be suspect sometimes. You got to be careful. But I think we did good this time. So if you could start us off, Mark, with the first bit of trivia that we have.
Sure thing. So Tony Scott did not enjoy working with producer Joe Silver on this film. Um, so if you ever seen the movie True Romance, which was also a character that was it was played by Saul Rubinek. If you've seen that True Romance is a great movie, by the way. Like I don't want to spin my wheels into too far of that, but um, so for Joel Silver, he made sure that Saul Rubinek was that um, he he kind of made him out to be like that villain that he didn't like. So Tony didn't like working with Joel, so he made this producer in this show kind of an a-hole, and it was loosely based off of Joel Silver.
Right.
Right. So when you watch that movie, I don't know if there's a big cocaine habit, or I don't know how many parallels are actually there. I guess we'll probably never know.
Right.
Um, but anyways, spoiler alert, he dies at the end, and that may have been something he wanted after all. So I don't know.
He hated him so much he killed him at the end of the movie.
Killed him off. That's it.
So next, assistant director James W. Scotchduple later recalled how some of the production problems were caused due to an overabundance of alpha males on that project. He has said in an interview, Bruce was at the height of his stardom. So was Joel, so was Tony, and so was Shane. There were a lot of people who had a lot of opinions about what to do. There was some heated early 90s testosterone charged personalities on the line. It was a charged environment, shall we say. So, yeah, there's just
too many cooks in the kitchen.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Too many Indians, not enough. Or too many chiefs.
Too many chiefs, not enough Indians.
Yep. Right.
Yeah,
I screwed up one of my favorite sayings.
So there was also so there was one of the days they were shooting, they were supposed to have hundreds of extras come on, and then once everyone showed up, they decided that they didn't need them for that day. So you had all these extras that in LA that took off work that were expected to be paid, and they said, just kidding, go home. So there was almost some riots that took place in LA. They had the LA SWAT team or riot police called in there to kind of control the situation. So just another, I guess, black mark on the production of the show, if you will.
Yeah. Or just another day in LA.
That's fair. Yep.
For the final collaboration, this movie is the final collaboration between producer Joel Silver and actor Bruce Willis. The making of this film, as well as Die Hard 2 and Hudson Hawk, took a toll on their professional relationship. Joel's ousting from Fox is why Silver is not involved in producing further Die Hard movies.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Questionably, like I said, I said 4 was my favorite Die Hard, which he was not involved in, but I thought, I'm a big fan of Die Hard 1, obviously, and that set the tone for these things, but I'll be honest, that's not the best Die Hard in my opinion. I love 3. I love this chemistry in there, which it looks like Silver wasn't involved in that either. But then even 2 at the airport, I think people don't like that one, but I didn't mind it,
And here's the thing. It should be the worst movie. Like Die Hard 1 should be not that it's a bad movie, but when we watch sequels, we expect sequels to be progressively better than the previous movie.
Well, that's what you hope. It doesn't always happen.
Right. It doesn't always happen, but that's exactly what you hope for. So, Die Hard is always going to be a great movie. It's always going to be a classic. It's always going to be that one that got you excited about these new characters that you've never heard of before. It got you excited about Bruce Willis as an actor, because this is like he's coming off of Moonlighting. I think this is his first movie after Moonlighting. People didn't know what to expect. It was like, let's see what he's going to, because it's like, it was hard to transition, and it's so
it wasn't
easy.
The first choice.
Right. And it was, it was so easy to get typecast, especially back in them days. You could get typecast as Bruce Willis could have been typecast as just a TV funny man and never been able to break out of that mold. but he was able to and then when he did Die Hard, that basically changed everybody's mind, right?
Yeah,
It
it
changed
did.
it's like then he basically got typecast as an action star. It's like you rarely seen him do anything else. And he's
Still
so good at
typecast,
it.
just in a different mold. Yeah.
Right, right. But he's so good at it though. It's like that's where he belongs, I feel.
So everything we're talking about here, you like these last couple bits about their the tension on the set and the egos and the testosterone. And Joe Silver even said this was probably one of the worst experiences of his life putting this movie together. And that's unfortunate because at the time you had a lot of big names, a lot of big people that you wish they had better chemistry. Um, there was parts of Shane Black's script that they changed. I guess his original script was a lot darker than what we got out of this as well. And I've
Right.
never read a copy of it, but it would have been interesting to see like what they changed and why, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, it's too bad. Like I said, these guys between Silver and Scott didn't get along. We didn't get into the relationship of Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans, but they didn't get along either.
Oh, I didn't know
Their
about that.
yeah, their chemistry on screen was fantastic, but there was a lot of like they weren't buddies.
Right,
You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
So and,
They
and ironically, they won an MTV award for like the best on-screen duo,
right,
but then they never did anything together again,
right.
which is unfortunate because they were super entertaining. So
Right, right. They definitely were. Well, I think that shows their they may not have liked each other, but they were so professional and so good at their jobs that they were
yeah,
able to do the job, do the work that was required and put out some excellent work, right? So
yep.
they were able to do the thing. So up next, composer Michael Kamen hated the film when he first saw it. The only reason he provided the score was out of personal friendship with Bruce Willis and producer Joel Silver. So he was like, man, I hate this joint. And it was probably an early cut, because they usually see the earlier cuts in the movie first. But he was watching, he was like, nope. Can you imagine trying to do a job like this for a movie that you hated? It was like it was difficult for him.
Oh
But he
man.
did good. He's done good work.
Yeah. Well, you said it. You were listening to it and you're like, yeah, this is pretty good. So,
Yeah.
that's a consummate professional right there getting it done. So the daughter, Danielle Harris, I mean, I know she hasn't been in a ton of movies that we've noticed, but this was one of her favorite roles. And I'm going to stake claim that it's because she got to drop F bombs all over the place
Right.
where maybe she couldn't
I
otherwise. So,
agree. She had a sincere potty mouth. She was like, F
yep.
this, F that, F,
Yep.
yeah,
Sorry,
she was
mom.
all
It's
over
in the
and
script.
it's
I'm
like,
only, you know,
right, right. When I was younger and I saw that, I was scandalized, right? I was
if she's
clutching my
talking like that,
pearls.
I can talk like
I
that.
was like, "Oh my!" Because when I was her age, I did not curse, not even, not even like
Nice.
apart from my parents, not even a little bit, not even with like among friends who curses. Like, no, it took me a long time. I don't think I really started cursing until I got into the military. So it's almost like, oh, it's all right to curse, and now I can't stop cursing. So
Nice.
up next, with this film, Shane Black became the first writer to sell a spec script for $1 million. According to Time magazine, he was originally offered 2.25 million by Carolco Pictures, which kind of would explain why they went out of why they had to file for bankruptcy, but decided to go with Warner Brothers for the lower but record-setting bid of 1.75 million, so that he could work with Joel Silver, who had also produced his script for Lethal Weapon. This record stood for 65 days until Carol Cole purchased a screenplay by Joe. Oh my goodness, this name I didn't rehearse this name before the show, so I'm going to do my best. Etzer Joe
We'll go with it.
Etzer.
Joe E. Just call it E.
Yeah, Joe E, which became Basic Instinct for $3 million. And Basic Instinct was a fantastic movie. It was great. But Kirko was just throwing around money, throwing around money. It's like,
Yeah. Must be nice, right? Must be nice.
yeah, absolutely.
So Damon Wayans had to train a little bit to be. I mean, he's a physical guy, he's in shape. But do you remember Vince Evans? He was a quarterback with the Raiders back in the day. I don't think he had a great long career, but he worked with Damon Wayans training for this role as well.
Right, right. Um, I don't know that he required that training, right? Because it's
Well,
like he
he
doesn't.
threw the football, right? Or maybe
Right,
2 throughout the whole
right,
movie.
right. He
Whatever
threw
Vince Evans got paid, he earned it.
he threw a football. That's what he did.
Yep.
I think there may have been some scenes with him playing football, or they anticipated him playing football, and then they decided not to do it. So I guess it makes sense in that frame of mind that
Yeah, if there's
the
some edited scenes, yeah.
right. Or they wrote it in the script and they decided to take it out. So that in a way that makes sense. So the best we can say is that he trained with a professional quarterback for nothing. We can say that.
I would agree. I would
Right,
agree.
right. So the conversation between Joe and Jimmy about the $650 pants was taken from a deleted scene in Lethal Weapon. Murtaugh's daughter is wearing expensive dress for a New Year's Eve party, and he asked, "Does it have a little television in it?" She says no, and Murtaugh mutters, "I am very old." So $650 in today's money is $1,034. So
And they're pants. They're pants. You know what I mean? Could you imagine having pants that expensive and you go to a restaurant or something and you spilled like, some tequila or some Coke or,
right, right.
something on, maybe some spaghetti sauce. Like, I don't know.
Well,
Nope.
they do that all the time. It's like there's some people that live on a different scale than we do. I'm pretty sure that there's somebody in I don't know, uh let's say Kuwait. No, not Kuwait. They're too rich in Kuwait. Let's say that there's somebody in Hong Kong. Well, I'm just gonna choose Hong Kong, even though I know they're a fairly
Sure.
rich country. Well, there's somebody in Hong Kong. You're like, you spent $30 for those pants. Oh my god, that's so much
Right.
money.
Right. Yeah. You go to Walmart, you get those for 12.50.
Well, even in Hong
That's
Kong,
it.
where most of the clothes are made, they're probably paying $2 or $3. They probably go to a shop and get
That's
somebody
fair.
to make custom pants because all the shops are there. You see them made in Hong Kong and half of our clothing.
Nice. So we were talking earlier about like the original script was better. There was a lot of changes to this one. I don't know if it's available. I haven't really Googled it, but maybe it's useless to do now. But I'd love to read the original script and or at least have someone else kind of cliff notes me the changes that were made on there.
Right.
So it was a lot different, and I think, well, I'll let you elaborate on that a little deeper.
Yeah, yeah. So it's some parts of the original script. So with Shane Black's first script, it was very different from the final film. It had a more darker tone with more violence, and almost the entire second half of the script was completely different. Besides many differences with the plot and characters, Black's script also included a more focus on the two main villains, Milo and Shelley Marcone. Milo, for example, was an even nastier villain than he was in the film. In the script, besides being a hitman for Marcone, he also had a job as a director of snuff films. Do you know what those are?
I plead the fifth.
Hey, good enough answer. In which his men, oh, actually, before I continue, there was a very famous series of snuff films called The Five Faces of Death. This is not movies where you would see somebody. I don't think you saw somebody kill somebody else, but there were definitely people who had died in accidents that had gotten
I'm
filmed.
familiar. I'm familiar with Faces of Death.
Right,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. So I never saw it, but I remember when I was growing up, people used to talk about them all the time. So to
It's
continue,
the things you don't see in the news.
or
Like
or the things that it's almost like finding porn in the woods, like it's the things that you grow up with, and one of those things with Five Faces of Death. So Milo had a job as a director of snuff films in which his men would kill, kidnap women in very violent ways. There was also a scene in the script where he brutally kills an entire family who accidentally shows up near the place where a meeting between his and Baynard's men took place. Other parts that were changed include a big boat chase scene with Joe and Jimmy trying to escape from Milo and his men, chasing them through the fog until their boat and helicopter crashed into each other. A shootout and fight scene between Joe and Marcone's men in Joe's house Another shootout in Marcone's mansion in which Joe sneaks in after killing several guards. Joe and Jimmy saving Joe's wife Sarah from being killed with a chainsaw in one of Milo's snuff films. And different and final showdown between Joe and Milo, which took place outside of Joe's office after he chases and tries to shoot Joe while on foot. Milo gets killed by Sarah, who shoots him with Joe's gun. So it was going to be much more family involvement. Everybody was in danger. Milo is a homicidal maniac. So yeah,
Yeah.
it would have been a very different film. And you know what I want to see? I want to see, I know like people always talk about like, we don't need remakes. We don't need reimaginings. We don't need to see like these things, but I do want to see somebody shoot uh Black's original script. I do want to see that. I want to see the Shane Black cut of The
Shane Black.
Last Boy Scout.
I'd settle for some. I'd settle for some storyboards. You know what I mean? And let me just see where that was going, and then you could kind of envision it and see. Because that last piece there does feel like that's very dark, and I think it would have changed the tone.
I don't even think
I
they could name the movie The Last Boy Scout. It would have to be a completely different movie.
yeah, I agree. I agree. But I think giving Milo a little more depth would have been something pretty cool.
Yeah,
Giving him like make him seem more menacing. You know what I
right,
mean? Um, because he was very polite and he didn't do anything to anybody. He just talked tough and then, you know,
right. He
um,
talked tough and he shot people with assault weapons.
yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like there was no, you didn't see his dark side come out. You
Right,
know what I
right,
mean?
right, 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 right,
So at least make a reference to it or something. I don't know. But
right.
so we talked about the crossovers between this and the Lethal Weapon series. Um, there's a scene when you first meet Darian. She's actually watching Lethal Weapon on the
Yeah.
TV. So if you get a chance to see that, I had to go back and take a look at that to confirm. I thought that was pretty cool. Um, so that was Weapon was written by Shane Black, and this initial script here. Um, let's see, it was initially going to be called Die Hard, and Bruce Willis was going to be offered the role of Riggs, which obviously went to Mel Gibson, which I think was the right choice,
r-
personally.
right.
Um, and to go a step further on the crossovers, I don't know if you ever watched it. They did a TV series, Lethal Weapon, and
Yes.
Damon Wayans plays Murtaugh on that series.
Right.
I think it's only one season, but it was a pretty good show.
Yeah,
So,
it was 2 seasons and
oh, was it two? Okay, well there you
yeah.
go. You have watched it.
I didn't. I always wanted to watch it. I think it's still on Hulu, so maybe it's another show that I'll
Well,
add to the
you're
hopper.
too busy. You got to watch Reacher before you get to
Right.
old
I gotta
Lethal.
watch Reacher first. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely tempted. But I remember when the show was being advertised and premiered, and Lethal Weapon is one of my favorite series. I love Damon Wayans, and I'm so interested in seeing him as Murtaugh. And then they have this new guy that's playing Riggs. And did you hear like the back behind the scenes of what was happening with that show?
For the Lethal Weapon show?
Yeah,
No, I did not.
yeah. So the
So
actor
what
that was
happened behind the
playing
scenes?
yeah, the actor that was playing Riggs, he had a chance to direct a couple of episodes, and people were getting hurt, and people were mad at him for like not taking care. And his attitude was like, "Well, you're all a bunch of pussies or whatever." But you don't. They're actors. They're not stuntmen. You don't put actors in dangerous situations, and you don't, under any circumstances, get them hurt, right? So you try to take care as much as you can, and then you try to use professional stunt people as often as possible. So people got hurt, and then he got into it with the producers and whatnot, and then they eventually kicked him off the show. So then he was replaced by, I guess, Stifler. I can't remember his real
Oh,
name.
Sean William Scott.
Sean William Scott. Thank you. I
Yeah.
love that dude, but I never remember his name. So, so Sean William Scott.
Stifler counts.
Right. So Sean William Scott came into the TV show as a brand new character, and basically carried it to the end of that. The end of the show. But yeah, the news behind that, and it's kind of a shame that they chose an actor, and this actor turned out he's probably an asshole. He's probably.
He's in another movie, and I can't think of the name of it, but I thought he did a pretty good job. Like he's a good kind of rednecky action star. You know what I mean? Doesn't
Right.
give an F about you. Um, So, which sounds like that's what he is in real life. So maybe he
Right,
wasn't
right,
really
right.
acting much at all.
Close to
So good
his
for him.
close to his character. His
Y-
character is close to him, I guess. So
Yeah.
finally, we have Tony Scott. We had talked about this earlier. Tony Scott wanted you had mentioned how they wanted somebody else to play Corey that was
Mm.
played by Halle Berry. Tony Scott actually wanted Grace Jones to play Corey,
What
and
does she look like back in '91? Was
I
she a
mean, she
looker?
was. You remember Conan the Barbarian or
Yeah.
Conan the Destroyer? One of those where she was in Conan the Destroyer. She
Okay.
was she was a model, so she was very skinny. She's very tall and very skinny. Like she wasn't.
Okay.
I wouldn't refer to her as a shapely woman, right? So,
More lanky, maybe.
huh?
More like lanky.
Yeah, lanky. I would put that as lanky, but that I think still today that's how people prefer their supermodels. They prefer them tall and lanky,
Mm.
without much shape, and that's still prevalent today. And it's caused a lot of health problems for young girls who have body image problems and issues with anorexia and stuff like that. But
Sure.
she was Grace Jones at that time was definitely that woman, that supermodel, and they had her in mind, but then they got Halle Berry instead, which I think was better.
Yeah, for sure. For
I
sure.
think the but every time she's appeared, she's been like I've always enjoyed Grace Jones in movies. Now I've only seen her in two movies. That's Conan the Destroyer and what's it called? Boomerang. So Boomerang is a romantic comedy with Eddie Murphy, and
Yep.
she's just incredible in that movie too. So yeah, she's very dedicated when she gets into film.
Excellent.
So that's it for our what do we call this, trivia. And no worries, man, I've only been doing this for 2 years. I always forget my segments. That's it for the trivia segment, and up next we're going to talk about what the critics thought. All right, back we're going to talk about what the critics thought about The Last Boy Scout. So, and I'm kind of surprised to see this. I knew that it had mixed reviews, but I didn't know that the reviews were so low. On Rotten Tomatoes, the critics gave it a 46%, but the audience gave it a more appropriate score of 68%. And on IMDb reviews, it's around 7 out of 10, which is very respectable for IMDb. So, why don't you let us give a shout out to like the first couple critics?
So Gabe Lebowitz from eCinemaCenter.com. Overblown rubbish with nothing to hang on to save an opening football scene. We got Chuck O'Leary from the Fantastica Daily. A slick, big budget exploitation movie that's preposterous, foul-mouthed, and gratuitously violent, but also a great deal of fun.
Yes.
I agree with Chuck.
Yeah, I agree with Chuck too. Now, given that I know that this movie is even though it's one of my favorite movies, I understand some of the criticisms that
Yeah.
it might get, but I don't agree with Gabe Leibowitz. I don't agree with it. Overblown rubbish? No, it's just right for the 1990s. What are you talking about?
Right, exactly. It fits in perfect.
Yeah, it fits in perfect. It's supposed to be overblown because it's a movie. Because if we wanted to watch something that was not overblown, we'd watch something like The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. But we didn't go in and watch The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. We wanted explosions, we wanted gunfights, we wanted car chases, we wanted Bruce Willis saying incredible lines. That's what we wanted. And that's what The Last Boy Scout brings to the table. Up next is Tim Brayton from Antagony and Ecstasy. I can read. Ecstasy. Antagony and Ecstasy. He wrote, "It's a very problematic movie, no doubt, but it's frequently the biggest problems that are the most interesting things to study." And you know what? I agree with that. That is a poignant statement. It's like, yeah, it's got problems, but let's look at those problems. Let's study them. Let's try to figure it out. But unlike him, I totally enjoyed this movie. And then lastly, and I'm surprised by this, Roger Ebert from Chicago Sun-Times, he wrote, The movie has a lot of laughs. Its action sequences are thrilling. Its surprises are startling, and it shows a real ingenuity in the ways by which it gets Willis into and out of trouble. And he was saying the same thing that we were saying, is that we just
Yeah.
enjoy how Bruce Willis gets out of trouble in this movie. And I'm surprised that he liked it, because I would expect that this is not a movie that he would like.
Yeah, he's usually pretty tough on these kind of movies. So, I mean, critics are what critics are. I mean, some of these guys that kind of use, like, who can use a bigger word that no one knows what it means except
Right.
them to make, you know. So I get back to what I say from the beginning. You know, if I'm entertained, then I'm in.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
if you want to dive too deeper than that, then, you know, I mean, opinions are like a-holes, right? I mean, everyone has their own opinion of it.
Right.
So you really got to watch it for what it is. And it really circles back to everything we talked about, you know, at the beginning, was if you're going to do a podcast about movie reviews, it's not about your opinion or my opinion, because who really cares what we think about these movies? It's how we can deliver that message and say, hey, you know what? Here's some fun things that we liked. And if someone listening watched this movie, and they enjoyed it, well, they can look back and say, oh, well, you know what? I agree with Mark here. I agree with Zoe, you know, and you just start to remember the pieces of that movie, which make you enjoy it all over again.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and that's the hope of something like this. So,
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. And I think that was the thing with The Last Boy Scout. It's like the nostalgia that I get from watching it. I just remember being enormously entertained, and then being able to revisit that. I watched this on Monday, and just being entertained all over again. It's like there's sometimes you might watch an old movie and you're thinking, okay, that didn't age well. But
Yeah.
and then other times you just get those feelings back all over again, watching a movie like this. And it just hit all the right spots. It did all of the right things. And that encapsulate my enjoyment. And like you said, it do sometimes when you read some critical reviews, who has the biggest vocabulary? That seems to be
Right.
the competition.
Their
But,
journalism degrees starting to kick in.
right,
You know,
right,
but who
right,
cares?
absolutely. But the other thing is that I remember growing up how critic reviews were enormously important, especially when you didn't have that much money. Like, you had a choice between, you had enough money to see one film. There are 5 films out, so which one are you going to watch, right?
Yeah.
Which one are you going to
Yep.
wait? Like, it nowadays, if a movie doesn't do well, it's on streaming like in the next month. Like Shazam is
You could-
already on streaming, right? So
Yeah.
there's another movie that I watched, this called A Knock at the Cabin. It's with Dave Bautista.
Bautista, yeah. Yep.
It's a fantastic movie. It's an M. Night Shyamalan. And I talked about that movie on a different podcast called Movie Lovers Unite. And that one I had purchased as to stream, even, and but I think that some theaters are still playing it. Not that it's a bad movie, but it's like one of those movies that's just in and out. It's just in and out of theaters. But
Yeah.
if you like thrillers or horror movies, I would, and if you like M. Night Shyamalan, I encourage you to watch this movie, because it's one of his best. It's like I would put
Okay.
this up there with like with Signs. I would put that up there with Signs. This movie.
Okay.
So yeah, that you got you gotta watch. You got to take what the critics say with a grain of salt, but at the same time, they help you make smart financial decisions.
Maybe. Yeah.
As far as how you want to spend your time.
Yeah.
So, finally, The Last Boy Scout is, as of this recording, available wherever you stream movies. That's it for today. Next week, we have a special guest, Sarah, from the podcast Two Chicks Talking Flicks. We talk about a movie that I've been wanting to rewatch for a long time, An Officer and a Gentleman. Join us then. Follow us on Twitter or TikTok at Backlick Cinema, or on Facebook or Instagram at Backlick Cinema Podcast. And if you're on Mastodon, at Backlick Cinema at mstdn.party. I have to admit, I've been making a lot of Mastodon posts lately, but it's still there if you want to check it out. And don't forget, you can contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlickcinema.com. And John, do you have, you know what? Your name is not John. Your name is Mark. See, one other thing that, so I'm just reading. I'm like John
That's fair.
Burgundy. I'm just reading off the teleprompter. Mark, do you have any additional plugs for Casual Nonsense?
Just the same ones, really. So this has been a lot of fun, and I appreciate you having me on. So if you're listening and you like anything I had to say, hopefully we get more of that on Casual Nonsense. I'm definitely interested in what other topics people might want to talk about, whether it's movies or specific actors. I have a lot of ideas, but like I mentioned, I don't want to talk to myself, so I need to bring someone on to have that conversation with and see what we can do. So, if you have an opportunity to check me out, I'd appreciate it. But it's been a lot of fun with you today, Zoe. So, thanks for having me here. This has been good.
Thanks for coming on. I very much appreciate you coming on. As like I told you earlier, I really enjoy your show. I love the topics. I love the casual ease of with which you have conversations with your guests. And the other thing I like is that you have some very interesting people on your show. So you don't have all of your episodes up. I mean, all the episodes are up, but I haven't listened to all the episodes. You only have like 6 or 7 episodes right now, or is it 10 episodes?
We got 11 officially.
11
I'll say.
episodes.
Yep.
I also like how short the episodes are. They're like between 30 minutes and 45 minutes.
Yeah, quick hitters.
Oh man,
right?
I love that. I love
Yep.
a short podcast. I can just binge all of those episodes.
I won't count on it. I've seen your binging on TV shows, so I won't
Right,
hold you
right,
to
right.
that. I know your habits now.
But yeah, I just look forward to see who you're going to have next on your show. I look forward to the conversations that you're going to get into. So one last time, if you like this show, then please help us grow by spreading the word about Backward Cinema, the podcast. And I know that you enjoyed our guest, Marc. So please listen to Casual Nonsense. Believe me, it matters. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe. Share a movie from yesteryear with your family. Hug your loved ones. And if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.